Hello everyone, welcome to Introduce Investor Days. My name is Carl Bokvist. I'm the responsible analyst from ABG side covering CTT. With us today we have CEO Torbjörn Johansson, who will present the company for about 20 minutes, followed by some Q&A on my end. So with that, I leave it over to you.
Okay. Do you hear me? It works? Okay. We have 20 minutes, so we go straight into the presentation. We are working with the problem with humidity in aircraft. As you know, when you fly long haul, it is very dry in the cabin, but it is too wet at the aircraft fuselage due to condensation. So we are building humidifiers, you see it on the left side, and dehumidifiers. The humidifiers try to make the air as pleasant as possible in the air, and it means to be like on the ground. The dehumidifier tries to take away the condensed water to reduce the weight of the aircraft and reduce then fuel consumption. That is a product that works for the climate. CTT was founded in 1991. We have headquarters in Nyköping. We have a production facility in Nybro outside of Kalmar. We are about 110 people. We are listed on the small cap and we have a market cap about 2 billion Swedish crown. If we look at the last 4 quarters, the net sales grow with 37% and our EBIT growed with 60%. We deliver about 66% of our sales is the first sales. It goes to the OEM, Airbus and Boeing, or airlines or VIP customers. And we have about 34% in the aftermarket. If we look at our position, the humidifiers are flying around at about 50 airlines. We are the sole supplier to Airbus and Boeing regarding humidification. We have a lot of airlines because they buy Airbus and Boeing aircrafts. And what has happened the last years is that flight deck humidification, thanks to 787, is getting more and more like a standard. We are also the absolute leader to equip VIP aircraft. Over the years we have put in our system in about 100 big VIP aircrafts. If we look at the dehumidifier side, we have about 50 airlines on the 787 that flies with our system. And we have been over the years selling a lot of system in the retrofit market. And we have 3 airlines in Europe that more or less put it into their whole fleet. The underlying trend to reduce fuel consumption and so on is good for us. Also the trend that more and more people are put into the same small aircraft is also good for the dehumidification system. But we will not grow substantially if we don't get the system listed as optional system on the big platforms. It means 320 and 737. Aerospace is a good place to be in. If you look at the left side, now it is about 25,000 aircraft, big aircraft that is flying outside there. If we look 20 years ahead, it will be about 50,000 aircrafts flying if the trend continues. And it means that over the next 20 years, it will be built 44,000 aircraft. So it's a big growth in aerospace. For us, if we look at where we are, our best segment is the wide-body aircraft. It will be almost 20% of the total fleet in 20 years. And where we try to get in more is on the single aisle, which will be 70% of those aircraft. The wide bodies are important for our humidification system. The single aisle, they are important for the drying system. If we look into our humidification business, we can say that flight deck humidification, thanks to 787, there is a lot, very many of the new built wide-body aircrafts comes with a flight deck humidification. And that is good for the pilot, it is their working environment. The crew rest is not as good, but it's very good, and it grows with 787 and 350. If we look at the passenger cabin, we are coming in now. The first airline started to fly business class humidification. It was China Southern. It was in the end of June. And we have customers also on 777X. So flight deck is good, crew rest in the middle, and passenger cabin is in the beginning. In long-haul aircraft, because you fly so long, the aircraft manufacturer, Airbus and Boeing, try to make the environment as good as possible. You try to have the same temperature, the same amount of oxygen as on the air. You try to reduce the noise, vibration. You even try to compensate the altitude. So they do that you should feel good. But where you have a really big gap as a passenger is the humidity. If you fly business class, you have a humidity level of about 5 to 10%, and that is much, much drier than on any place on the earth. If you have been flying long haul, perhaps you have noticed it. You get dried out, you get cooked. A trend that is also happening in the humidification business is that thanks to 787 and 350, which is relatively small aircraft, but they can fly as long as the jumbo jets did before. That has given that the airlines open up a lot of new direct flights. Instead of going to a hub, you can fly directly. You as a passenger get a shorter total trip, but you get a longer leg. So you will be more affected by the dryness, which helps us to sell humidifiers. You will stay in one aircraft, perhaps 15 hours, than to go in two different aircraft with 7 or 8 hours. This has happened a lot during the last 10 years. Our best product is, of course, 787. We deliver, for the moment, about 2.2 humidifier per aircraft. The Dreamliner has really opened up humidification for the public and especially for the crew and for the pilots. We have now the phase where the A350, which is Airbus competitor to the 787, starts to deliver more and more. And there is a lot of airlines that fly both 787 and 350. And we are in the position that most of them have selected our products for 787, and they continue to select on the 350. As we said, we have two big customers, Airbus and Boeing, but behind them, it's a lot of airlines. We have humidifiers on about 50 airlines, and you see all the big airlines, they are customers to us. They buy consumables, they buy spare parts. And we are very proud to be really, really strong in China. It seems like the Chinese airlines, they always select flight deck and crew rest humidification for their personnel or their crew. And if there is one place you like to be in aerospace, it's to have a good opportunity in China, because that is the market that is growing the most for the moment. For us, you should think, if you look at CTT, it looks very good, especially if you look at the humidifiers. But if you look at the left picture here, we are really only in the beginning of what we should do or our travel. The program down there, 787, they have delivered 700 or 800 aircraft. That is a good program that has created the position we are in now. But then we have 350, you have 350 is coming. They deliver more and more. Then we have 777X on contract that will be certified perhaps during next year and will go to customer. And then perhaps we have a Russian-Chinese aircraft, they call it C929, where we also hope we can get into So our humidifying business is very in the beginning of what we already have on contract. And if we would be lucky to get humidification to go also in business class, we have a good possibility that the airlines will also harmonize their fleets and retrofit our system into the existing fleets. This is very, very good that we are in the beginning. If you then add that most of our profit is in the aftermarket, we are really in the beginning of the aftermarket. So we have very good chances to grow over the next 20 years as we looked. Aftermarket, as I said, has grown. It's good as it is now. We have been growing with about 25%, 33% in average per year because of the population of humidifiers out there is growing at that pace. And as I said, with the contracts we already have, we are only just in the beginning. And I think I have said it before, where we earn the best money is really in the aftermarket, as every supplier in aerospace do. If we look at the dehumidifier, it's a little bit more challenging. We are in a niche market. We are strong in Northern Europe and in Russia because we have cold winters here. We are optional on the old Boeing 737 aircraft. We are still standard on the 787, but it will be deselected from 2020. So here we are a little bit, if the position in humidifier was excellent, here it's a little bit more challenging. But we believe in the drying system. Why should you accept this? Every flight you have condensed water on the inside of the skin. So we used to say how to get rid of 20 kilos to save fuel, to save the environment. That is to add 25 kilo by putting in our system. If you do that, you can save 200 to 300 kilo on a typical 320 or 737 aircraft. Then you would save the environment. If you put in one of our system in an A321 aircraft, that saves as much emission as 50 cars do. So if an airline really would like to compensate for the company cars, they can put in the drying system in the aircraft. We work hard to get in. As I said, the big market for us is the 320 and the 737 MAX. To penetrate that market, we must be optional on the catalog from Airbus and Boeing. We said in the report we make some progress on the Airbus side. If we look at the MAX side, they have other problems. It will take some time before Boeing think about the drying system for a MAX. But we try through retrofit installation to put pressure on OEM, and we especially concentrate to sell it to Neo and MAX customers. We have a number of trial systems out there on 321. We work to get the STC on MAX. We work with 320 families and so on, and I can say that we are strong in Northern Europe and Russia. If we look at our financial, we said in the report, the next quarter, which is this quarter, we will have sales between 80 and 85. It's about the same as we had last year. Last year, the third quarter was a very strong quarter. If we look a little further and look at the rolling 4 quarter, we say that over the next 4 to 6 quarters, I think we will flatten out. Historically, we have been growing with about 15% per year. But because Boeing take away the drying system from 787, and that contributes about 15% to our sales. We think we cannot compensate that immediately, so we expect 2020 to be flat. Then our normal business, what we have now, will make sure that we continue to grow from 21. So if we look a little bit out through the window, of course, we work with humidity control for a better climate for the passenger and also for the environment. And I'm a little bit optimistic even regarding the drying system. This is a picture from a pregnant blanket, we say. It's a blanket that is full with water. This happens every day. Why should we accept that the airlines fly around with a lot of water in the blankets? This could be taken away with the drying system. This would save fuel, would save CO2 emission. And now with Greta Thunberg and everything, I think we have stakeholder that is pushing the airlines to do everything they can do to reduce weight. Before, they have done everything which don't cost much money to reduce weight, or where they can have some immediate savings. But I think in the future, they cannot get away with that. They have to do everything they can to reduce fuel consumption. And that is a strong driver for our drying system. And of course, perhaps people will fly less in the future because of the environment, but I'm very sure that if you should fly long distance, or if you should travel long distance, it's not a good alternative to be flying. If you should go to the United States with a boat, it will not work. So we will at least continue to fly when we would like to travel long haul. And if you do that, why should you accept to be boiled or to sit in the cabin which is so dry? We are in the start. I think the public will require that they increase the humidity on long-haul flight. And the last picture I have, I think we are in the beginning of this. China Southern got the first A350 in end of June. We have one A350 with cabin humidification flying. I think they even have the second aircraft. They will start to operate them on long haul now in the fall. So it will be interesting to see what happens. I think we have started with cabin humidification. So, was it timed?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So, I would like to start off by discussing a bit about long-term growth. Of course, you're very good at guiding for quarterly sales, but let's talk about the potential here, mainly on the humidifier side. If we look at the pilots, they operate aircraft that cost hundreds of millions of dollars. They have the responsibility for hundreds of passengers. Perhaps it would be feasible that they should operate in a good working environment, but is that what is driving the demand for the humidifiers as well for the airliners? Is that what you're seeing, that the airliners would like to order more humidifiers because the pilots are asking for it? Or what do you think are the main factors that should speak in your favor, why you should see a lot of orders coming from the 350 and the 777X for the next 10 years?
I think 787 is the example. 85% of all 787 has cockpit humidification. And if a pilot is flying one day 787 and he has a colleague that is flying 350, of course they talk. So because of the success in 787, it's difficult for the airline to refuse to buy humidification for the cockpits on other modern aircraft. Mm. And especially if you come to 777X, that is the big brother to 787, why should the pilot that flies the big aircraft accept that the junior pilot that has to fly 787 should have a better working environment? I think on the cockpit humidification we are through. It will be more or less the standard to buy a flight deck humidifier.
Mm. And when we look at the business class side, what do you think will be needed for the airliners to install these, I think it's about 3 or 4 options or number of humidifiers that you can install in the 350 and 777X.
In the end, it will be the passenger that decides. Because if a passenger fly business class on a long trip and realize how much better it is with humidification, he could decide to take that airline the next trip. So that would put pressure to other airlines to buy business class humidification. The problem we have had is to get the first airlines. But we have the first airlines. We have China Southern. Emirates will take it in first class on the 777X. ANA, the Japanese airline, will take it on first and business in 777X. We have one more 350 airline that take the system or aircraft beginning of next year. So when those systems are out flying, then the passenger will decide what the airlines will select in the future. So it will be like the cockpit humidification. When you realize the difference, it would be hard to avoid.
And now, of course, you are talking about the launch customers. But if we are optimistic here and assume that this will spread to other airliners, which year do you think that the growth will start to kick in? Are we talking 2021, 2022 here?
If you talk about orders, it could happen this year, it could happen next year, and so on. We work with a lot of airlines and try to convince them to select our system in the new aircraft. If you talk about sales, it takes some time. If an airline decides tomorrow to put it in its new aircraft, and that aircraft is delivered 22, we would deliver the humidifier in 21. So the sales will take some longer time, but the orders we can get anytime.
And then, of course, you also pointed out your guidance here for the next 4, 5, 6 quarters. There should be a bit flat. Should we see this just as tough comparables that you have grown quite rapidly over the last periods? Is there anything else behind it? If we look past the 787 dehumidifier part, how is the rest of the business performing?
The humidification business is performing very, very good. On the drying system, we have some challenges. VIP is normal, so the flattening is due to the 787D selection. That's 15% of our present sales. If that stops one date, we have lost 15%. So it will take normally a year for our normal growth to compensate those 15%.
And then, of course, it's the aftermarket business that we hope will exponentially increase as the population increases. But you talk about profitability here. Can you give some indication of could the margins go above 30% over time as the aftermarket share increases?
The aftermarket share increases and that grows profitability. The other factor is, of course, the US dollar. I think the US dollar was at 9.82 this morning. So we are close coming to 10. So as long as the US dollar is strong, the aftermarket is growing, and therefore our margin will increase. We don't have any special cost and so on. If we then add the normal sales increase, we also have an economic of scale. We have no problem to increase sales with 10% and increase the cost perhaps with only 3 and 4. So the growth itself will also give us better margins. So we have to, then if we get over 30, I don't know which months it will be, but of course we will be profitable. With this US dollar, with this aftermarket, it's no problem to earn money.
And then you released some news just the other day here about your business in Gustavsberg. Just out of curiosity, that is a small part of your business. And the reason why you sold is it to focus on the core?
It was we did buy Gustavsberg because that was driven with a person that owned by a person that had to go to retirement. And they made the electronics, which was an important part for us, and they were really important at that time. But the main sales was to Saab for those recognized aircraft. And that kind of business is very volatile regarding engineering resources. So it has been difficult for CTT. We don't want to invest outside of the core business and keep that running. So we decided 1.5 years ago to try to move that competence to Nyköping. And we will do that, but we don't get the personnel with us. They don't want to move from Gustavsberg to Nyköping. I don't understand that, but anyhow. So we did not manage that. And then we said we will close this facility, but we had a lot of connections to ÅF. ÅF wanted to build up something similar to this themselves. So it was a total win-win. Instead of closing that, we did sell it and got some money. ÅF got a very good start for a new activity. And all the people working there, they keep their jobs. So it was not an important business for CTT yesterday, but it was important for me to keep the working places there. And now we continue to have them as a possible supplier. But as you said, they were outside of our core business. We want to concentrate the knowledge into Nyköping because there is some advantages with this to have the engineers at the same place. So it was a good move yesterday.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.